Hello and welcome to the Classical Music Digital Awards. I'm so glad to have you here. It is really, really exciting. I'm also totally blown away by just how much incredible music has been nominated to this. It's been utterly, utterly spectacular. 2020 has been quite the tough year for classical music, but over the last 12 months, we've seen some incredible innovation, resilience, and creativity. These awards are for those musicians, ensembles, and orchestras and projects who've also embraced digital during 2020 and kept the music playing. As it's New Year's Eve, I'd love you to get involved. We're going to have a bit of a party. I've got my cheapest own brand Prosecco, so I hope you've got something nice to drink as well. So please do get involved in the hashtag, which is CMDA2020, and you can see it going on the bottom of the screen all the way through the show. I'd love to know what you've been up to during 2020, the things you've loved, what have been your musical highlights, and as it seems we can't really go out to do a party, I'd love to see some photos of where you're watching from, what you're drinking, what you're eating, even if you're in a bathrobe, which I've a feeling might be the case. This whole live stream is also an aid of Musicians for Musicians campaign started by Amelia Conway-Jones for the charity Help Musicians UK. This is supporting musicians who are affected by the pandemic. So please, if you're in a position to do so, it would mean the absolute world to me if you're able to make a donation to Help Musicians UK during this live stream. The link is either in the description of the video or it is in the comment section of the video, and I've also created a shortened version which will be running along the bottom as well, which is bit.ly/help-musicians. All the money goes to Help Musicians UK to help those musicians who are affected. So it seems as you're saving money and not going for a night out on New Year's Eve, do consider throwing the price of a drink to help musicians who are currently struggling for work. That'd be really, really appreciated. Also, Amelia is going to be joining me at the very end of the live stream as well to talk a little bit more about the campaign and how it's been helping musicians over the last 9 months, which I'm really, really excited. As it's New Year's Eve and it's going to be a bit of a party, I've also got some really fantastic guests with John Jacob, who you may know as a blogger, content producer, fascinating guy, and Majet, who's a writer and former classical music critic for the Washington Post, and pianist Alistair Hogarth, and they're going to be stopping by for a drink, sharing some of their musical thoughts and highlights of the year, and basically being a part of the party. As I mentioned at the top, it's been unbelievable, and I've been totally blown away by the amount of nominations for the Classical Music Digital Awards, with over 600 entries in just the 2 weeks that we had nominations open and the 0 notice that I gave you. I've had a really fantastic, although pretty shattering couple of days reading through all of the nominations, consuming as much content as possible and getting this show ready to go, but I'm so excited that we're finally here. Before we get started though, I'd love to have a look back at some of the things that musicians, ensembles and orchestras have been up to in 2020.
Hi everybody!
It really has been incredible. I've loved seeing not only the insane, high quality, huge budget productions, but also what musicians have been getting up to with mobile phones, whatever's in their house. One of my friends have been using, I think, was a early learning center cooker as their phone stand for most of their music lessons. It's been utterly brilliant, and there's so much content that's been incredible to see. So we're going to start the awards with the lockdown project section. So this is going back to the start of March or end of March and the start of lockdown for projects that were created in isolation, for those different categories and people who created things at a time when it's impossible to meet other people. These can be individual concerts, series, education project, any piece of digital content made by various different people. I should mention as well, for all the awards that we're going through, there are going to be 2 highly commended nominations, except for the one occasion where there's 3, and then a one-off winner as well for those. So the first category we have got is the lockdown project for a choir, which was incredibly oversubscribed. There were so many amazing things from this, which was absolutely fascinating to watch. So the first of those goes to Steel Antico and highly commended for a lockdown recording of Spem Allium, marking 40 days of lockdown, but also pulling together musicians from all over in what was one of the first big montage videos, which is absolutely incredible. And what may have to be my New Year's resolution for 2021 is having some Welsh lessons. So I apologise in advance for completely butchering this. But the other highly commended nomination is In Urith, virtual choir project, which brought together 2 Welsh community choirs, Cor ABC and Cor Dynas, to produce a performance of a new work about the situation and pulling together Welsh people, whether they're in London or elsewhere. And you will notice further as we go along that Welsh lessons are going to be a theme. But the winner of the lockdown project for choirs goes to... I just realised I'm muted in all these little video clips, so that's going to be fun going along. But the award goes to the Stay at Home Choir. It has been such a phenomenal achievement seeing what has been done with the Stay at Home Choir. The Global Armed Man was a lockdown project created by the Stay at Home Choir, which involved more than 5,000 singers over 73 countries around the world. Its digital performance was selected from movements of Carl Jenkins' seminal work, The Armed Man, and the project was a huge collaboration with so many different partners being involved. Run by Tori Longdon and Jamie Wright, the performance received over 127,000 views and is utterly breathtaking. Some of the comments and testimonies from people who were involved, who were nominated, who did the nominations, were just unbelievably touching. So huge congratulations to you. Then going forward, we then have the lockdown project for ensemble, which again was a really fascinating one to look through. So the highly commended both are the Virtual Concert Band by Laura Campbell, which brought together musicians from over 40 countries around the world to rehearse and perform collaboratively. And the other lockdown project is the, bear with me 1 second as I'm scrolling through, the Kaleidoscope Orchestra. They're one of my favourite ensembles for a long time, and they've been leading the way of making collaborative lockdown recordings with some incredible arrangements. If any of you have come across them before, they're prodigy arrangements. There's so much fascinating music, and the level of quality is just absolutely insane. But the winner of the lockdown project for an ensemble goes to Yuri Post, Jukebox. I think I got the pronunciation right there, and like most things in this, they'll be pronounced completely wrong. But this goes to both Tom and Elena, Tom Poster and Elena Urist. They've been an incredible collection of musical performances, starting off in lockdown, carrying all the way through the year, mixing music, entertainment, and as you may have spotted them in the opening intro, some kazoos as well, which has been just utterly incredible. I've been joined early, which I'm really excited by my first guest. So I'm going to bring him in now, actually, which is really exciting. So I mentioned we're joined by John Jacob. So John, it is great to have you here. You should hopefully be on the screen by the joys of technology.
It's like the Eurovision, isn't it? It's just like the Eurovision.
I got a little bit carried away.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's really great. And actually, when one hears one's name announced, your heart starts pounding. Just as a warning for anybody else who's joining this after me, I'm testing it out, and I'm very nervous.
You're the guinea pig. It is just what I needed.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that's why you gave me the early shot, David.
Exactly, and I thought I'd get to you before we've had too much wine in the day for New Year's Eve as well. You never know.
Fortunately, I've only had tea. It's just tea.
Well, before this show started, I managed to see your thoroughly good roundup of the year of things that you were into for your video highlights. Oh. It seemed that you had a very busy, frantic January and February, and then I imagine things changed quite significantly, like they did for absolutely everyone. What was it like having to sort of plan all this content that you were normally doing to then having to switch suddenly? What challenges did it face creating content?
Oddly, I didn't really feel as though I'd had a busy year. And then I looked at all of that and thought, actually, I have. There's been quite a lot of things. I didn't really feel as though I had to do any... I didn't have to shift my plans particularly. I think what I became more aware of was actually how much I'd already got lined up. This sounds terribly big-headed, but I think what lockdown made me realise was that I'd already got quite a lot planned. I'd probably got too much planned, and I was going to be spending quite a lot of time editing stuff. In terms of interviews, I think it because everything shifted to Zoom or other video-based services are available, obviously. That actually I ended up it felt like I ended up meeting far more people than I ever would have done face to face because of journeying and sort of setting stuff up. So it felt, certainly in the first 2 months, as though it was just relentless and I couldn't deliver stuff on time, really. I mean, that's how I perceive it in my head. So I didn't really have to shift anything, I don't think. Yeah.
That's promising news, at least. But you've been involved throughout lockdown, not only in creating content for yourself and some of the organisations that you're involved with, but also meeting other organisations, musicians, ensembles, and sharing their stories. What have been the highlights of things that you've been recorded and interviewed and people you've spoken to?
I think, they are inevitably going to be personal, really. I think for me, it was connections with London Mozart players, with the LPO when they did their summer sessions. I mean, I found the transition out of the first lockdown a fascinating storytelling process, because we were all sort of being asked, whether you were players or whether you were journalists or videographers or what have you, everybody was being asked to shift from their normal way of working. And for me, the LPO summer sessions were the most striking. That previously a building that I had just sort of swanned into with all of my stuff, I was now having to sort of negotiate different procedures, and I was being forced to walk around a building in a particular direction, and you can't go over there, and you must wash your hands before you go there, and you have to hold this boot in order to speak. I mean, just interviewing somebody, it sounds like I'm talking like you're fine, but just the shift in mindset of doing something as straightforward as an interview, where you're having to hold a boom at a distance, and that distance is important for building rapport and getting stuff out of people. That was fascinating, and also possibly a little bit depressing, because it wasn't going to be over anytime soon. So I think that, and London Mozart players and their visuals when they did they did a film performance in Westfield, I think it was Westfield Shopping Centre, and they were all wearing red masks. And at that point in time, as a visual element, I thought that was quite striking and quite. I found that quite painful to see, really,
because it was totally abandoned for that, and it seemed to get the scale and the emptiness of that shopping centre all in one.
Yeah. And they looked sort of both vulnerable and defiant, and sort of almost like they were gagged, really. And I thought that was really potent storytelling. I wonder whether it might have been accidental. And I may be projecting my own emotions onto this. I have a tendency.
It's always the way, I think. And it's fascinating to see what you read in situations. And for me, just sort of, Westfield is somewhere I know. My sister lives vaguely close there, so I've been there more times than someone who lives in Yorkshire would normally go. And seeing somewhere that I was used to being just bumped into constantly and crowded and packed, being so empty, and the sort of the glass ceiling and everything, it's just really brought home just the space and the isolation we're feeling, which is totally incredible.
I think the LPO's stuff, similarly at the festival hall when the LPO was filming for Marquee TV, I think that too was a slightly chilling experience, going to the festival hall through stage door and up in a goods lift. I mean, as a front house experience, I wouldn't recommend it, really. It was a bit sort of like, oh, is this what we're doing now?
All of a sudden,
no.
If anything,
no. Especially when we got to the bit where people were going, when we'd finished, and what do you normally do at the end of a concert? You either go to the bar, well, newsflash, the bar is closed, or you just leave the building. And leaving the building had to be staggered. You could only have 3 people in a lift, and that just felt like, I've said before, it felt like we were all being punished, frankly.
Yeah, it's very strange, and it's I finally went to my first in-person concert at the very start of December, so I had to wait a long time for mine. and having to sort of have the staggered seating, and it's felt that it's at school when you've been naughty and you have to go sit in the corner away from all your friends, and you obviously can't be trusted, you have to be away, and it's quite a strange experience. But
Yeah,
as someone who's very much into creating content and finding new things, what have been the surprise projects that you've seen that you didn't know about before lockdown that have really warmed your heart?
I think the one that really sort of touched me that seemed terribly well timed was the Rotterdam Phil's Ode to Joy. I mean, musically, emotionally, everybody was feeling very raw at that point. I think it sort of prompted a slew of similar lockdown videos, but I do think that I realised that the awards are all about UK ensembles and orchestras, so I'm talking about European.
There's no rules, there's nothing going on, it's completely fine, it's international.
I think that was really touching, and I think that was the paradox about this particular period, that here were all of these ensembles creating stuff that was touching people by virtue of the fact that we were all isolated and essentially denied our freedoms. And so we were all sitting targets, basically, sitting emotional targets for all of these ensembles. So I think that one, I think the 16 with their video featuring one member of the group who gave birth, so not during the video, just to clarify if you've not seen it, I thought that was terribly sweet. There have been a lot. I think also the Fairy Brass Band, they did some good stuff. And also the arrangement of calling it all work, Steve McGee, maybe. So for those who don't know, Calling All Works is a British light music classic. And he, if I've got the arranger's name right, he did an arrangement for bassoons and contrabassoons, which was just hilarious and utterly charming.
Incredible. Well, as it's almost time for you to be released back for your normal New Year's Eve plans or whatever you've got ahead, I'm not going to say what incredible things you're looking forward to and what predictions you have, but what are the things that you think are going to happen over the next year that are potentially a positive to come out of this? What's going to be online and you see musicians doing digitally that is exciting you? I've only had half a glass of this gorgeous bubbly from Andy.
Yeah, I was going to say, wow, you're really managing this well.
Exactly.
I don't know digitally. I don't. What I hope we don't see, and I know this is a terrible thing to say, but what I hope we don't see is more lockdown videos, because visually they did very quickly become quite tired. So if you are going to the lockdown video, then you've got to come up with a cracking underlying story. It's a really severe thing to say, but I really hope we don't see too many more of them. I think in terms of concerts, I think they will be out. I think concerts will follow formats for digital, which means that it will be, digital concerts need to be about an hour. And I think that eventually when concert halls open up again, there will be a change in the format of concerts. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, really, because it will mean potentially people get more time at the bar before and after, as opposed to this crush in the middle.
I know I was going to let you leave, but on the back of that, what potential things do you think people could do in lockdown that's a little bit different then if we happen to have those situations again?
Oh, damn.
On the spot, it's terrible.
Damn, you've held me to my scathing remark. I don't know. Because I struggle with this too. I think that there's space for curation. I think there's space for advocacy of musical genres. That's quite a dull thing to say, isn't it? But what I have absolutely noticed is that if you get a musician or you get an author talking about the thing they love, so long as it is something that they are passionate about, then that will it casts a spell on a potential new listener. And I think there needs to be more people talking about the thing they love as opposed to just playing it. There we are.
That's a wonderful note to end on. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've got some nice cheese, lots of snacks for the rest of the night. Fun night ahead.
It's like you paid me. No, I haven't. That's why I'm going to the supermarket now. Thank you very much, David.
Absolute
Goodbye.
pleasure. Thank you for being with John Jacob. And if you haven't come across John before, you can find out more about him on his blog, Thoroughly Good, which is absolutely fantastic. Right, on to some more awards as I click around frantically on one computer, wondering how all of a sudden people do this with large teams. So we're on to the Lockdown Project for a Musician. Moving on. So the Lockdown Project for a Musician, the highly commended we have Helen Charleston for the Isolation Songbook, which is an incredible collection of pieces that were created in lockdown. And then we have, and I apologise again for the pronunciation, Joby Burgess for the virtual marimba choir, which brought together marimba players from all over the world. And Joby has curated and created the whole project and is utterly, utterly spectacular, which is fantastic. So congratulations to both of you. Then moving on to the winner for the Lockdown Project for a Musician. So the winner is Tony Woolard for his Mozart Requiem for Cello. If you haven't come across this recording yet, it is absolutely spectacular. And as someone who's a cellist, I was totally in awe of the whole thing. So after sadly contracting COVID himself and losing several members and friends to the disease in March and April, Tony began to arrange Mozart's Requiem for 20 cellos, but playing every single part himself. Starting off with the Lacrimosa, the piece got over 250,000 views on Classic FM on Facebook Premiere, and he ended up doing the entirety of the Requiem for cello. It is utterly breathtaking. I know that the Lacrimosa is the piece that has the most views. It was released at the part of lockdown, but you have to go onto his YouTube channel and check out the whole Requiem. It is genuinely breathtaking and such a stunning arrangement that I wish I was able to play. So huge congratulations to you, Tony. So before our next guest joins us, we have a couple of other awards to fly through quickly. So we then go on to a Lockdown Project for an opera. So this is either an opera company, opera project, something involving opera in effect. So the highly commended for the opera section are Northern Ireland Opera for At Home for Heroes, which is an incredible project celebrating those people in the NHS. And also Scottish Opera for their Gondoliers video by Gilbert and Sullivan, which genuinely put one of the most amusing smiles on my face for someone who normally isn't a Gilbert and Sullivan fan, but the editing was spectacular, such character, some great animal cameos, which is always the way to my heart for any video. But the winner of the award for Lockdown Project for an Opera is the opera's L'Enfant et le Sortilège with the London Philharmonic Orchestra. Such a ludicrously creative project. If you haven't seen it, I honestly don't have the words to describe it, but it's recording the entire opera remotely, shooting on iPhones, green screens. It genuinely had everything in such incredible resourcefulness, especially it's, as John was saying, potentially reimagining how to do lockdown videos. People's heads transformed into more cartoon caricatures, there were animations, there was so much as part of this. So huge, huge congratulations there. And then moving forward, we then have the Lockdown Project for an Orchestra. The highly commended in this section are the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra for their Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra. And again, something that was recorded in lockdown, but really, really creative, where the orchestra themselves were positioned on the screen in small circles in the shape of an orchestra section. So you almost get the same animated view as you have those posters in your music school on the wall that show the sections of an orchestra. And again, when it came to the variations, it was pulling together those and elements of education. It was genuinely fantastic. And the other highly commended is Blackpool Symphony Orchestra for their Over the Rainbow video, raising money for the NHS. Genuinely a fantastic arrangement, and also wonderful seeing the lockdown production and for such an incredible worthy cause as well. And if I remember rightly, the views were fantastic for that as well. But the winner for the Lockdown Project for an Orchestra goes to the Royal Scottish National Orchestra for the RSNO at Home project, which is genuinely utterly staggering when you see how much they managed to create in the lockdown period for these first few months at the end of after March kicked off. So during the lockdown, RSNO began to release weekly videos as part of a series for its RSNO at Home project. This started with a Friday night club, where it was a series of live stream performances that built a community around a concert season, but these built up incredibly to have more and more projects on top, including the hashtag RSNO challenge. And if you have a family and you're watching at home, go back and check these videos out as something to do during either the holidays or any lockdowns we have going forwards. They're spectacular and were created by musicians at home. Also, their Sunday Sound series, having recitals by the individual musicians at home as well. The 15 free concerts for the Friday Night Club were from the archives and were never before seen footage. Overall, the initiatives reached over 470,000 people, which is genuinely spectacular for what you think is such a difficult time for orchestras. The ability to reach and communicate over the world is truly spectacular. So, as we wait for our next guest coming up, Anna Midget, I love to see everyone in the comments getting involved and some wonderful photos on the hashtag of people eating, drinking, general bits of nibbles. It's fantastic to see. I'd love again to see some of your highlights of what you've seen. Just some general questions I'm going to start answering. Through a list of nominees, there will be something coming out on the website later, but because of creating all the graphics in 2 days and all the reading nominations, I haven't got around to doing the website yet, which is going to be something I desperately need to do going forwards. But there is going to be an entire website dedicated to this, the people who've been nominated, those awards, and also I'm desperately going to try and create some content around some standout projects that sadly I didn't have the time or space to recognise, but genuinely were incredible and deserve to be seen by more people. Fantastic. Also, just a little reminder, please do give to Help Musicians UK as part of this live stream. As we mentioned, it's such a good cause that they are helping musicians throughout the pandemic who don't have work at the moment, and they are helping support them with various foundations and funding opportunities. So as you are stuck inside and you are not able to go and spend £20 on an overpriced pint in the centre of London, please do consider giving £2, £3, £4, the price of a small drink in the north, to Help Musicians UK, and all the information is either in the link in the description or in the post itself, or you can see at the very bottom as it slowly catches up the URL if you require to type it in as well. Please do that. It'd be fantastic if you're able to be a part of that. Right, so we're just going to go through another award before we are joined by our next guest. As I go back to my piece of paper, we're going to have a look at the lockdown project for youth. So this is quite a tricky category to look for. So it's a youth project, anything involving people and young people, organisations that are for youth, anything regarding that. And again, this is a project where there were so many amazing, fascinating things being sent in. And as someone who worked in education in the past, it was genuinely amazing to see. I absolutely loved all of this content. So for the highly commended for the lockdown project for youth, the first goes to Mini Music Makers, who you may have seen as part of the small highlight video at the beginning with the monkey impression and blowing to the screen. They did the most phenomenal series for young children who are stuck at home in lockdown. And from flying through all the content they have made, it is spectacular to see just how much variety they have in their costumes, their sets, the things they created, the songs they performed. It was pretty unbelievable, to be honest. I can't believe they have that many costumes in their house already. Then the second highly commended goes to National Orchestras for All for that ability to pull together their courses during lockdown as well. All the musicians who are stranded around the country, especially for people who aren't normally able to have access to these opportunities, they managed to find a way to continue their courses throughout all the hubbub of everything that's going on. Truly spectacular. And if you haven't come across them before, they are such a phenomenal organisation that you really do need to check out as well. But the winner for the lockdown project by a youth orchestra goes to the New York Youth Symphony. I'll be entirely honest, I had not come across them before lockdown, but I'm so glad that I did. They are the most amazing project. Their performances of Marla One and Elgar Pomp and Circumstance were not only recorded in lockdown itself, but it managed to catapult them to a whole new audience receiving thousands of views around the world and media coverage, including CNN, NBC, Classic FM. They are genuinely incredible and a huge testament to what you can potentially do with all of this wonderful technology, which is fantastic. So huge congratulations to them. I'm so delighted I found them. The Marla 1 recording in particular is utterly breathtaking, and I really recommend that you go out and try and find that as well. It is genuinely fantastic. All right, now back to my wonderfully cheap Aldi Prosecco. Please also do let me know what your plans are for that, how you're bringing in the new year, and I'll try and get and click and reply to everyone at the same time as well. I know it's really strange that it's not what you'd normally get. We've had snow today here in Salford, and it's such a strange time to think that normally be so busy, but I'm enjoying being here with you and bringing in the new year early as well. Wonderful. So I'm just going to bear with me 2 seconds as we're having a couple of little tech issues that I'm trying to fix at the same time. But as we're working those out in the background, I'm going to push forward with, again, a couple of the other awards that we have. Really excited to see what some of those are as well. So our next award, we're pushing on, and this is one that I genuinely had to split. This is where we have 3 in the highly commended section. And this is the award for a podcast. It's genuinely been amazing to see how people have come up with their own ideas, showcasing stories, thoughts, feelings, emotions, all of these different things as to what they could do during this time, which is genuinely incredible. So for the podcasts, the highly commended are a mic on the podium with Mike Seal, sharing conversations with other conductors around the world, their thoughts, how their careers have worked, their musical outputs. It's genuinely fascinating. I still, as someone who is a musician, kind of see the conductor's world as a bit of a mystery. So it's been, for me, a personal highlight to get some insight into that. Then there are things musicians don't talk about, which is an absolutely wonderful podcast you really should be checking out, talking about the things that we don't really talk about, such as nerves, anxiety, all these different things. And there's been a fantastic way of showcasing and sharing information that can help musicians going forward at a time when we're not necessarily able to perform. And the final podcast in the highly commended section is Beyond the Triangle, which is particularly around trying to provide information for parents who are trying to learn and find out and provide support for their own children as well. It's such a wonderful highlight, and I honestly couldn't split them to get them down to 2. So huge congratulations to all 3 who are highly commended. And please do go and check all of those out. They are wonderful and have to be on your subscribed list, which is fantastic. But then going on to the winner for the podcast section is... So the winner is 3 in a Bar, which is a fantastic podcast, and I honestly can't believe it has just sprung up this year. With a total of 35 episodes and chatting to fabulous guests from conductor Charles Hazelwood, comedian and singer Rob Brydon, Charlotte Harding, and music journalist June Rogers. They've been getting a snapshot of musicians and artists' lives in a lighthearted way and finding out about the fascinating careers. It's also been incredibly heartwarming to see just the audience response as well as to what people have nominated and been saying about it. It's been very, very heartfelt and absolutely fantastic. I really recommend going and checking them out. For those of you who want to see some snapshots of the people who've done the awards, sadly there isn't time as there's 28 awards in total, and ideally wanted to get through at some point, but all of them are tagged on social media, in particular on Facebook and Twitter as the awards are going out. Please do go and check out their accounts, see what they've been up to and the various projects they've been involved in. It's absolutely fantastic what they can do, and I really recommend that in your own time you go out and check some of those out. But sadly we don't have time to look at all of the people who have been creating projects, but it's genuinely I've been totally blown away with what people have been inputting, which has been fantastic. Wonderful. So we're just waiting for my other guest to join. Bear with me 2 seconds, I'm sending a quick message. They're joys of technology in 2020. It's always wonderful. But again, it's great seeing some of where you're watching from, various drinks. I think there's still someone watching in a bathrobe, which is fantastic. So great to have all of you still being a part of the conversation. I'm genuinely touched that so many of you have joined in and were watching here today and using this as part of your party as well. So as we're still getting over some of the tech, we're going to just keep going through some of these awards. There's plenty to get through, and I'm sure you have exciting plans of watching the new year come in from the comfort of your own homes. So this brings us on to the award for Digital Concert Platform. Now this is quite an unusual phrasing, but is basically for those organizations or people who have created their own platform where they're putting content out. Those people who've not just done live streams on social media, but have created an entity which is akin to their own Netflix, if that makes sense. So their own Disney Plus, their own place in the world on the internet where they can carve out and have content that can connect to people. And there have been some wonderful, wonderful offerings, and it's actually quite hard choosing between all of these as there's such a variety in what is going on. But so the highly commended section, we're just going to have a quick look at those. There are Vouchers 8 for their London live season, which is a summer festival which brought together various ensembles. It's absolutely spectacular, using an online platform and bringing people together somewhere new and unique. And the other highly commended is the LA Phil for their soundstage project, which has to be the most beautiful platform I think I've ever used. It is genuinely incredible, and not only is the content on there incredibly cinematic, the actual platform itself is so easy to use. So there's wonderful music to choose from, and all free as well, which is absolutely fantastic. You can also see in there they give program notes, various interviews, all within the platform itself, which is absolutely spectacular. So genuinely really recommend going and check out LA Phil Soundstage as well. They're a wonderful platform and absolutely incredible. But the winner for Orchestra for the Digital Concert Platform Award, almost got a spoiler there, that goes to Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment for their OAE player. I'm honestly still a little bit in awe with this one when you see what people managed to achieve during lockdown, especially with some orchestras who were putting out very, very good content, but releasing a concert a week or a concert every 2 weeks, and there only being one piece of their concert scene available at any one time to start off with, potentially leading up to I guess 10 concerts within a season by the end of the season. OAE decided to launch 24 concerts on their OAE player at launch and are continuing to add more and more content as it goes along. I honestly can't think of any other platform that has had such a comprehensive amount of content on there and being available to audiences. It is genuinely awesome, and it's such a testament to the ambition of what they do as such an enterprising orchestra. Again, really recommend going and checking out OAE Player. They also, for their launch, did a Pay What You Think Art Is Worth campaign, which is incredible for raising awareness of the value of digital art, which is absolutely spectacular. But brilliant. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to welcome my next guest, who is here with me all the way over from the States. So Anne Majette, thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you here. Happy New Year in advance.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. Sorry to tune in a little late. Happy New Year to you.
Pleasure. It's 2020. I think these things are kind of on brand, if anything. It's just part of the vibe and the ethos, in effect.
Absolutely.
Lovely. Well, it's great to get your input from the other side of the pond, as one thing I found really hard in 2020 is consuming so much content that's been out there and the amount of art that's been there. Normally, it's your issue is that what do I see on one night in my city? But now we have so much available. It's quite hard for anyone involved in this world to see it. How have you found that challenge of being bombarded with the world's digital art?
Well, I have the luxury that I quit my job last November. It's been a year without a job. So it was an amazing year to quit your job since the whole world kind of quit along with me. So I am no longer an official music critic, at least not for a daily paper. So I had the luxury of consuming as a private citizen and really exploring what would I do if I had the time. I actually would have watched a lot more, but I have a young son and remote schooling took more time. So I found my my watching was very spotty, and I made no pretense to trying to cover everything. That said, I did get to see a lot of things I was interested in seeing that I only tuned into much later, after they'd been around for a while. But that is one of the dangerous things I think about streaming content, is that people are putting so much wonderful stuff out there, and that there's no guarantee it's going to be seen. A lot of stuff I think has fallen in the cracks. There's been a lot of wonderful stuff that hasn't been able to sort of make its way through. And we've seen how the Metropolitan Opera and the Vienna State Opera have been able to sort of dominate the landscape by flooding the zone with great content. Which is, their existing content, more of the same. And as usual, the smaller, more inventive, wonderful things have been kind of sidelined. So one of my very, very favorite videos this year was the Orpheus and Eurydice from the In series, which was actually filmed in England. And it was a complete coronavirus project of a husband and wife, Orpheus and Eurydice, and their kids, and one cameraman, and that was it. It was all socially distanced. And it was brilliant. It was really revisiting Orpheus and Eurydice in the time of COVID from the point of view of a husband who's lost his wife. It's kind of heartbreaking and very much brought into the present day. And so it came out, and I was all excited, and I meant to see it. And it took me a good 6 weeks to get around to watching it. And I'm interested. And I thought, what a challenge in this day and age for these producers to find their audience, even of willing, sympathetic listeners. Unless you're the Met and say you get it free tonight and that's it.
No, there's so much in there, and I think it's fascinating. And in particular, this could be one of our main challenges going forward: is how do we make sure that content gets seen? And how do we make sure that it's valid in terms of being rewarded for your art? And how can we make sure that musicians are being paid in the 21st century, not just with streaming services like Spotify, but how does it work in the online space? I think you may have done yourself a disservice in saying before that it's a music critic for the Washington Post. In essence, your journalism goes well beyond sort of the normal duties of a critic, and so much elements of advocating, campaigning, and investigating. What challenges do you see for us going as a sector, based on your knowledge and experience in commentating on the sector as a whole before, for 2021? What are the main things that are coming forwards for us?
Well, I see it. I have two sectors in that, because there's the classical music field and there's the music journalism field, which was already dwindling before this. I think that what COVID will do to music journalism is not great. I think that now there's even less incentive to cover the sort of local grassroots things, which editors are moving away from anyway. So that when things come back, I think it'll be harder for them to get written about, and we're going to be looking more at a national, what's happening in London, what's happening in New York, that kind of thing. Less so, of course, in Germany, where there's much more happening in many more places, and it's always been a little more decentralized. So there's that. There's the huge question of how people are going to make a living in the new economy. I mean, it's very uncertain how many things are going to come back and to what degree they're going to come back, for all that we're putting a brave face on it. I know one person in the industry said to me he was suddenly worried that it was all going to go back to the way it's been and everybody was going to cling to that. And if that happens, it's purely because of the economic life raft that the Metropolitan Opera, which we love to hate, represents to so many musicians. That's the only way you're going to get paid a decent amount of money. And these amazing creative projects are giving you a few $100s, not a few $1,000s. And that's if you're lucky enough to get them. There's going to be a bottleneck of artists, even worse than it's been, trying to get fewer jobs. And we know it's going to be fewer jobs. It's going to take a while for the ecosystem to revitalize. So yeah, we have to think of other ways and maybe delve more into patronage, maybe the Kickstarter model. I mean, this is not just a music problem. I always say it's a 21st century problem. And the Kickstarter model could possibly be tapped into more. People are always eager to get that view behind the curtain. Well, let's find patrons for these things and really play up that angle. I think that a lot of these smaller community-oriented concerts that have happened in the wake of COVID, because you could do a socially distanced concert for 50 people in a bigger space, that is a really great seed for greater involvement and a greater personalization, which is good for the field anyway. The fact that it's become these big behemoth organizations does no favors to the art form, the audience, or the performers. So it has been a great reset for that. It's just a question of how to make it fly economically.
Certainly, I think there's so many challenges in there. And it's been fascinating to see what people have done and which people have done things as well. And normally, I think the international soloists were the ones who wouldn't experiment with various models, like you say, about patronage. But I've noticed that Alban Gerhardt has been using Patreon as a model, which is very much a YouTuber way of making money and a living that you wouldn't normally expect someone from an international soloist point of view would be using, which is really quite fascinating.
But I think it's because people aren't making money. I mean, there was an article about Jennifer Coe recently that she's gone on food stamps, and it doesn't matter how famous you are. If you're not making any money, you're not making any money, no matter how much money you used to be making. It's a bitter world out there.
Very true. Well, as a note to end on before I let you go on to your festivities for the day, because I know it must be in the morning still in Washington.
Yes.
You earlier today, you published your 10 highlights from 2020, which is something you mentioned in the article you wouldn't normally do. Now you're not writing in the same way anymore. What have been your highlights of the year?
For me, looking back on the highlights was also kind of a diary of the shutdown. As you know, when it started, it was the Italian balcony concerts and this wonderful spirit of music prevailing. And then you had individual artists doing things on YouTube just to keep getting the word out, and everybody could sustain that for a couple months, and then it just got unsustainable. You can only do that for about 2 months, and then you run out of daily whatever it is. Then you got the organizations that started to do it, like the St. John Passion from the Leipzig Bach Festival was amazing. It was really wonderful, socially distanced with one tenor, one keyboard, a vibraphone, and a couple of instrumentalists socially distanced. It was a powerful and moving performance. Then you got orchestras beginning to flood the zone with Zoom performances of Beethoven's Ninth. And my favorite in that was the Juilliard School did a wonderful job of tapping into jazz, dance, acting, and getting everybody involved in a performance of Ravel's Bolero that was really wonderful. And the Bamberg Symphony did a great job commissioning a new work and making a video that was not just about the nostalgia of we wish we could hear Beethoven together, but here is a new piece with new imagery that is talking about COVID. It's a piece about COVID, and it was written in an idiom it was a strong piece musically, and it was not a thorny piece, but it was not a pandering piece. It was a very honest piece of work, and it was really nice to see an organization doing something genuinely creative and not just appealing to nostalgia and donors. And then in America, we had the Black Lives Matter movement was going on, also tearing society apart at the same time the COVID shutdown is happening. And all of our organizations have started to focus way more on years of institutional racism that have been going on. And so there were some wonderful pieces by Black artists. There's been a wonderful focus on Black artists and quickly trying to redress the wrongs. But Lawrence Brownlee, the tenor, who is such a wonderful singer, put together a couple of Lawrence Brownlee and Friends concerts that really had some of the joy, and it wasn't just this earnest, we are going to redress these wrongs. It was just look how we sing. This is wonderful, and they were a lot of fun. For Chicago Lyric Opera did one, and Opera Philadelphia did one, and I think there were a couple others. And then in the fall and winter, now we're starting to see the actual filmed projects that are trying to offer alternatives to performance that aren't just a Zoom grid. And I mentioned the Orpheus and Eurydice, the In series, that group that did that also did a podcast of Purcell's Fairy Queen. Like, what a brilliant idea, podcast opera. And then this Messiah that I mentioned finally, that was written about in the New York Times, it's hardly a secret, but this small theater company in Canada paired up with the Toronto Symphony and said, how can we do a Messiah that really reflects Indigenous culture, people of color, is not just white people singing Messiah. And they had a whole bunch of singers, each doing individual vignettes. And they had a lot of First Nations singers, which is to say Native Canadian singers, in singing in translations in the original of their own native languages. And it's a fabulous document of how music moves and how it can work on many levels, and how Handel doesn't have to be in a concert hall to be powerful and moving, and how people kind of reclaimed it and made it their own in a way that you don't always see in the concert hall. So that was a wonderful sort of way to usher out the year with a beloved piece, really reimagined for our time in a number of different ways.
Very much so. It's fantastic. So what I was doing while you were talking then is I've put a link to your best stream performances in the comment section for all the videos that have gone out on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Highly recommend checking it out. And as you mentioned, there's so many good things. I know that the Messiah one I'm going to be watching straight away as soon as possible. Before I let you go, as a sort of a final 20-second thing, do you have any updates on your book as well that was in the process of you writing your book during the year?
I'm trucking along. I'm heading toward the end of part 1 of 3 parts, so it's not coming out tomorrow, but it's happening. Stay tuned for the years. A lot of the Beethoven year festivities have been put off, and my book is about Beethoven's time loosely, so I'm going to include it in the 2021 post-Beethoven year.
Yeah, I think we've got a do-over for 2020 in Beethoven, yes. So I think he deserves a run out at least. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and Happy New Year in advance for tomorrow, and it's great to catch up with you again.
Thanks so much, David, and Happy New Year.
You too. Wonderful. It is so great to catch up with Anne, and it is great seeing some of your comments in this as you're going on as well. I'd love to know where you're watching from as well. It's great to see people from Reading. Great to have you here. It's really touched by just how many people have tuned in. I have also lost track in the middle of that conversation where we had got up to. Brilliant. So we are on to the community project, which is also really fascinating to look at, as I now click back onto where I am in the stream. So the highly commended for the community project of the year go to the 21st Century Musician Toolkit for Young Classical Artists Trust. I think it's been an incredible way in which they have been helping to look after the musical community during this time and helping provide free resources and information for musicians to upskill themselves, to help them with their careers, and hopefully to have multiple income streams going forwards. The other community project that is highly commended is Hull Music Hub, who've been incredible at pulling together people from all over the Hull area, providing recital seasons, various bits of information, all wrapped up in an ongoing season of music, and they've been incredible during this period. So huge congratulations to both of you. But the winner for the community project goes to Ex Cathedra's Sing Medicine project. It is such a wonderful, wonderful project, and I loved reading more and finding more about this. So this was a project that was going anyway, but lockdown obviously meant that the musicians couldn't go in to be a part of it. So Children's Hospital needed singing medicine more than ever, and sadly there were no visitors during this time. The team decided that to continue with their mission and values, to bring well-being through singing and playing to children who are in need. So the project was reimagined, and they made 112 short interactive singing videos and films as part of this project, which is absolutely incredible. And each week makes a personalised interactive film for some of the musicians as well. Some of these projects are available publicly, others are for specific individual children, so sadly they're not available, but I really recommend checking them out, including Noah the Bear. You can also go on their website and find out more about how you can support this project and how they're helping young children in hospital during this time as well. They're really, really fantastic. Wonderful. So moving on a little bit, the award next is for a live stream series. So this award isn't for those things that have been live streamed where concerts are pre-recorded, and it is very understandable why you'd want to pre-record. But some people, organisations have taken on the challenge of actually being live to an audience, and I really empathise, as it's something I am currently tackling now with varying levels of success and diminishing levels of Prosecco. But the highly commended for live stream series both go in a very small world of wonderful, wonderful harp music. So the first highly commended is Fiona Horsford for a harp recital concert season, which has been incredible to follow along during this time. And the other goes to Olivia Jagers, or Jagers, I apologise for the pronunciation, for Harpy Hour, which again has been a live harp recital season. It has been amazing seeing how both of you have done in both communicating harp repertoire and connecting to audiences and really taking on the live element of live streaming. So huge congratulations to both of you. So the winner for the live stream series, though, goes to the Royal Northern College of Music for #Live from the RNCM. It's genuinely, again, amazing to see what this project has grown into and people tackling what the potential of live streaming consumer technology is. The concerts themselves were accompanied not just as live performances, but accompanied by discussions where staff and students from the RNCM talked about various issues affecting musicians today, race, diversity, musicians' life, and genuine issues that were affecting the students that they wish to raise. And very brave that it was for RNCM doing that in a live format as well. It also shows the potential of what you can do to try and recreate television content on your own as well, which is fantastic. It's such a wonderful series. It's still going on Thursdays. I really recommend you join in and be a part of it. It's all free to watch. So huge congratulations to RNCM as well. Fantastic. Again, thank you so much for chatting. I'm aware that I should probably at some point upgrade the glass to something that isn't a giant tumbler, but the proportion sizes are better for Prosecco, which is always a benefit. So thank you, Pippa. The next award we're going into is one that is close to my heart because I'm a massive gadget and film nerd. So this is the cinematography section for the most beautiful visuals within a project. So the highly commended for cinematography go to the Philharmonia Orchestra, who've been putting out some amazing concerts and performances within stunning visuals, and to Green Gage Ventures for Tales of the Divine, which is not only beautiful visuals, but also paired with an art gallery and pairing that art with the music and the performance as well. So huge congratulations to both of you for being highly commended. But the winner for the Cinematography Award goes to the Queensland Symphony Orchestra. They have been putting out some of the most beautiful regular content going anywhere in the world by an absolute mile. Not only the performances they put out, specific visual content that is made for various projects, also just general interviews with musicians that seem to be filmed more of a really in-depth artsy Netflix documentary rather than just a social media piece of content. They are utterly beautiful and really do show the potential of what we can do during this time online, and I think they are leagues ahead when it comes to the visual look of things at the moment. So as we're coming up to the hour mark and I need to refill my glass, we're going to have a little mini short break to take in the Queensland Symphony Orchestra and one of their projects, which was their Matinés Méditation, which is recorded at night in Brisbane's South Bank Nepalese Pagoda, and is an arrangement for 8 cellos, harp and double bass. So I really hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in 5 minutes time. Isn't that just absolutely stunning? Unbelievable visuals. So thank you so much to the Queensland Symphony Orchestra, and apologies for pinching it. I didn't want to give away the surprise of the award. But it is great for having so much of you with us, and also it's also amazing to see you moving the needle on the Musicians for Musicians campaign to help Musicians UK support other people in musicians throughout the COVID pandemic. That is a lot of the word musician being repeated. But thank you to everyone who's donated. It is really appreciated. If you haven't yet, please do think about doing so if you're in a situation where you are able to. The link is going around at the bottom on the screen and also is in all of the social media. As 2020 has highlighted many technical issues, we've also found out that Facebook has a limit on how much you can post. So the award nominations will be linked to all the Twitter, the Facebook posts and accounts, etc. I will be coming out as and when I can make Facebook work. But Twitter is updating with all the awards and highly commended and things, so thank you so much for everyone who's engaging on Twitter. I'd also love to see some photos of where you're watching. There are some of them which are amazing, so even more would be fantastic. And it's great to have people from all over the world, from Angora, from Belgium, from Virginia Beach. It's great to have you with us, from Southampton. It is brilliant to have you all with us. Also, I'm amazed that there seems to be a fitness group, and we have people doing their 10,000 steps while watching, so 10 out of 10 for the effort. You're a much better person than I am, so very well done there. All right, moving along. So the next one, being a massive gadget nerd, is something that is very close to my heart, which is the Digital Innovation Award for the best digital innovation throughout 2020. So the highly commended are the BBC Philharmonic Pick Apart initiative, which has been absolutely incredible. If you haven't found it yet, it is a system where you can have your phones, your computers all connected, and you can choose a piece, and then each different device will replay each individual part on that device. So say if you have 4 mobile phones, you can tell the recording to play each different part of a quartet on each mobile phone. So you can play around with the acoustics, the logistics. You can also mute certain parts. So say, for example, if you want to play along with a quartet, you can do. It is genuinely awesome. I really recommend you go out and check that out. Well done to the BBC Philharmonic and the BBC Research and Development team. Really important to mention them as well for being a part of that. The other highly commended for digital innovation is Alternative Classical's Concert Roulette as a project for helping people find new music. If you haven't found it yet, it's a system where you can put in your various different preferences for bits of genres, and it will randomly show you digital content and help you discover new music. It's really fascinating and one of those things you can spend hours in a little rabbit hole on the internet finding more and more stuff, which is absolutely brilliant. So huge congratulations to the BBC Philharmonic and BBC Research and Development team, as well as Alternative Classical for Concert Roulette. I really recommend playing with both of those in your free time, which I'm sure we will have on New Year's Eve tonight. But the winner for digital innovation goes to Tides. So if you haven't come across Tides yet, Tides is a wonderful concert platform which is a mixture of Eventbrite and a live streaming platform. So not only can you sell tickets for your digital content in a place, you can host digital hangout rooms in this way that's similar to Zoom without having to shout at the horrible program that is Zoom. You can have live stream concerts. You can put concerts up there for prosperity if you want to sell digital content later. It's a great place for democratizing musicians' content in a way that financially rewards musicians in a way they want to be rewarded. I genuinely think that this is one of the things that's going to be really important for us going forwards, and the potential of what it can be is really incredible. Not only that, but a lot of the people who have been nominated and also potentially have won awards have been using Tides as their concert platform during 2020. So I think it's wonderful to see what this technology could be. I honestly can't wait to see what the future is. If you haven't discovered it yet, please go do and check it out, because it is, I think, one of the most groundbreaking platforms we have coming up. So, moving forward with a couple more awards before we get on to Alistair Hogarth, who's joined me in the green room. I didn't even realise it said green room in this, but that sounds very fancy, who is waving to me now. So next up, we are moving on to talk about some of the digital projects, which are generally projects that have been made digitally but outside of lockdown. So anything where people are able to meet outside of those lockdown restrictions and create content that can connect to people. So we are moving on swiftly to digital project for choirs. The highly commended go to Tenebrae for their series of concerts and films during May and all onwards. They are utterly beautiful and genuinely divine, so I really recommend you go and check those out. And they also go to the Cantos Chamber Choir for their Advent series. A huge well done for them, as they drew in over 41% of viewers who didn't normally subscribe to Cantos. So great way of connecting to a new audience, as well as being a wonderful initiative leading into the Christmas time and very beautifully filmed as well. So huge well done to both of those, and highly recommended. But the winner for the digital project for choir goes to and it's a bit of a mouthful, but the Choirs for Good Virtual Choir and the West End of Wales Orchestra for their, I've just lost it as it's now for their A Broadway Christmas project. Again, absolutely fantastic project, bringing together over 160 people over Zoom calls that sang from all over the world. And some of them hadn't even sung in a choir before, let alone a virtual choir. The youngest was ranged from 5 and went all the way up to 95, which is utterly wonderful to see such a wide range of people singing and being a part of it. In one case, there's also even 3 generations from one family. The main song itself was a 5-minute medley of famous Broadway Christmas songs that went to 5 different parts and were accompanied by the West End of Wales Orchestra, or WEOW, potentially. I have no idea what that sound should be in the acronym, but I like it anyway. And they provided backing for it and provided work for those musicians who would normally be working in West End as well. It is an absolutely amazing arrangement. I really recommend going and checking it out when you're free time as well. So huge congratulations to the Choirs for Good Virtual Choir and the West End of Orchestra Wales. Al, I can either come to you now or we can keep going for a few awards. Which of you feel? Al's good to go. Right, we're going to skip ahead a little bit and speak to Alistair Hogarth, who's a pianist and lead director of the Prince's Consort. Al, it is great to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm really good, yeah. How are you?
The tech's kind of working and I haven't had a breakdown, so I'm going to take that as a success.
Hey! So you can hear me?
I can hear you all good and everything's working minus Facebook.
Oh my goodness.
We'll take this.
How are you? What a great thing you've set up here.
Oh, thank you.
I'd like to extend a virtual round of applause for the entire music world to say thanks. It's a lovely roundup of this completely bonkers year, but it's so nice to sort of revisit all those amazing projects and stuff that have come out. So thank you.
No, thank you so much for saying. And it was really funny looking through all the nominations and just being like, oh, that was this year. That was this year as well. And in my head, sort of a year was basically 3 weeks ago. And I forgot about all these things that had gone on before then. But it is utterly crazy. I was meant to write some questions for you, but didn't. So what have been your things that you've enjoyed during 2020? How's lockdown been?
Oh, it's been, well, yeah, just I guess the same as what probably everyone else has said. But I sort of really liked the homemade performances. I liked stuff that was, I mean, I liked everything really that people were producing. I think everything that was created was a product of the time and is important. And, you know, whether it was technologically brilliant or not, or even musically brilliant or not, you know, people were sharing stuff and, you know, there's just such a diverse range of things to listen to and to watch. And I was very, I guess I was kind of really warmed by the music world's resilience and the music world's response, both in teaching, but in performing and keeping things going. And I know it's been incredibly tough for an enormous amount of people in the arts world in general, but I think it's also nice, you know, to celebrate all the awesomeness of the music world tonight. And yeah, I think this is a wonderful way to do it. But I think in terms of my favorite performances, well, I think my absolute favorite was, I don't want to sort of pick out people too much because I love so many things, but I love my mate Tom Poster and his wife Elena just those incredible performances that they put out on a daily basis. And I think what was so cool about it, well, it ticked that box of being just incredible musicians, smashing it out the park on a daily basis. But I think what was cool about it, you never kind of knew what you were going to get. So one day they'd be dressed in a certain way and giving a performance of quite serious classical work. And then the next day, Tom would have written an arrangement, or Elena would have written an arrangement of an absolute banger of a show tune or something. And it just, you never knew what you were going to get. And then they'd be like dressed in crazy stuff. Like, I can't remember, they wore so many different outfits. But I just loved the whole thing. And I just thought it was very personable. It was perfect for social media. And it hit the mood of what we all need as people that love music, and I think that was great for me. So I love that.
Totally, and they made it into the montage at the beginning, but the difficulty I had was choosing which ridiculous outfits to use, and there were just so many sort of, as you say, hilarious videos and ways of connecting to people. It's been.
I wonder if you can buy some of the outfits. They should auction them off.
Monetize it.
That'd be amazing.
That's how we can go forwards in 2020 for income for musicians, auctioning off things you wear during live streams.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very much so. So you, as one of your many hats that you have, and not just your COVID hat for your hair, for lockdown haircuts, you are a teacher at Guildhall and Trinity. What challenges are students facing at the moment? How have they reacted during the pandemic?
Well, firstly, they're facing enormous challenges. I think, considerably more than many of us that have been in the industry for a while, because I think, although it's difficult, if you're 20 years in and have some profile, you can sort of hit the pause button and you can jump back into it as and when. I think the challenge for students is that if they haven't got that professional profile already, and that's what they're trying to do right now, and build it, and they're just on the cusp, a lot of them, of hitting the big time. So I think just this has been an enormously challenging year for them from that point of view. But on the other side of the coin, the way they've dealt with it and the resilience they've shown and the resourcefulness that they've exhibited, whether it's just joining an online class and getting information from that and learning from it, or whether it's been putting out some of their own material online, they've really sort of reinvigorated me as a teacher and as a musician, but also demonstrated that the music world is in very safe hands. For the future. So I was just, my heart goes out to them, and I guess I want to sort of reassure them that it will be okay, and we'll get through all this. But I also want to say, hats off. I won't take it off just in case my hair's now gone like that, which it probably would have done. But I'm a big admirer of how they've handled it, and they've just been amazing, I think.
Very much, and I think it's all the extra stresses as well of maybe being in halls and away from family and all these different bits as well. They've been incredible during this time, and having
to put up with my often twice weekly dad jokes for 90 minutes a session. That's quite something.
I feel their pain. But no, I have no words. But yes, you're also someone who is creating content during this time and involved in filming projects and various bits. How have you found the process of making digital content during lockdown?
Well, I've always been someone that kind of likes limitation. So I always find I enjoy if I have a restriction somehow on how I do things. So what better restriction than a massive global pandemic? So I sort of enjoyed the fact that, I have an iPhone and a few bits of kit, but I liked making stuff look as good as it could possibly look just with my iPhone. And I think the thing I discovered was that you can sort of place an iPhone, because it's so small and light, you can put it in places where you couldn't rig up a normal DSLR. So I found that like quite a cool exercise, just to sort of really think outside the box. And I was like attaching it to curtain rails and stuff, and much to the annoyance of my wife, I think, probably always walking into a room finding me trying to like
best angle
put an iPhone somewhere in the room. Yeah. So I quite liked that challenge in a way. I also
Are your
found it
kids
quite
frustrated you keep stealing their toys to make tripods for your phone?
Oh yeah, I remember. Well, I remember we did a podcast, didn't we? And the Fisher Price or whatever it was kitchen. Sorry, I'm probably not supposed to advertise on here. It was a there's other brands available, but it was a kid's kitchen, and it was the perfect height for my iPhone. So I stole it from my kids because they were always stealing my iPhone. So I felt like it was only fair.
It's definitely fair game. You've also managed to tone down this story because when you originally told me it was a Fisher Price Arga, and it was much more middle class. Awesome.
Yeah.
And there's one final question before we jump back into the awards. How has it been being a musician with a family during lockdown? Because not only are you trying to create your living and teach and perform in various bits, but also be teacher, policeman on occasion, I guess, as well. What difficulties are there for being a musician with a family during this time?
Well, I mean, I guess the most obvious one is, well, there's two, because the kids have been at home like all the time pretty much. I think just practicing is quite difficult because it really annoys them. And because our main piano is in the room where the TV is, basically I'm just seen as a barrier between them and like Peppa Pig or whatever they're watching. So they get quite annoyed with me. So that's the first thing I'd say. The other challenge is, I think, just being able to, if I'm teaching a class, it'll be this kind of setup. And I'm in the conservatory at the moment. It's pretty cold, but it's the only room I can be in that's sort of like semi-noise proof. And but I can, however, see them on the left of me there. And if any of them want to try and sort of wind me up and like stand by the window and try and put me off, that is a challenge when I'm trying to be serious and be professional. But I think that's probably the main challenge. I think because we, especially back in March and just the few months after the first lockdown, I got so used to doing online stuff that it almost became more natural than being face to face with people. I remember going back into London, and when it was opened up again, and seeing people face to face, and I couldn't quite it was a bit weird because they were all in like 3D, and I couldn't get used to it. So I think I actually I really enjoyed teaching classes online actually. And it was nice because as soon as I'd finished, I could just go to the fridge and get a beer. Very nice.
Yeah. And also, if you don't know the name, it says in the bottom corner. And you can get around that problem. Absolute game changer.
But this caught me out a few times, though, because some of them would jump on someone else's account. So you had to be careful, because then you'd look really awful. Because had to be very careful.
Wonderful. Well, I'll let you get back to your New Year's Eve festivities and get back into the awards. But thank you so much for being here. And cheers.
Cheers, David. Thanks for having me. Thanks for all you're doing.
Absolute pleasure. And thanks for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. Happy New Year.
Well, thank you for Al. Absolutely wonderful having him with us. We're going to jump back into the awards. There's quite a few for us to rattle through now. So we're going to go through them. Really excited to share those with you. So we're now moving on to the Digital Project Award for an Ensemble. So these are digital projects made out of lockdown by an ensemble. So highly commended goes to South Bank Sinfonia Round Chapel Sessions. They're absolutely beautifully filmed, an immersive project that isn't just an orchestra being filmed statically, but involves camera movement and orchestra being in the round. It's more as if you're wandering through the performance than anything else, and there's not a standard view. Definitely recommend going and checking it out. And the other highly commended goes to Riot Ensemble Zeitgeist Commissions. And during the year, the Riot Ensemble gave more than £19,000 in commissions and fees and raised more than £17,000 towards musician fees for 34 new works for composers around the world. So huge well done to both of those. Incredible projects. Well done. But the winner for Digital Project Ensemble goes to the London Handel Festival for Messiah Reimagined. It is genuinely a wonderful project and wasn't just Messiah that was live streamed out. For them, their annual performance was obviously put into disarray with all the COVID restrictions. But they created a unique online performance blending live and virtual performances. with incredible soloists and an orchestra together who were distanced in St George's Hanover Square, but also the chorus were pre-recorded by over 7 choirs and over 150 singers in 16 countries who were integrated digitally into the overall performance, and the video reached over 230,000 people, so huge well done to the London Handel Festival. Okay, so the next award is the Digital Project by a Musician. So again, projects made out of lockdown but are digital during 2020. Highly commended go to Nelson Ebo, and apologies for pronouncing your name wrong as well. This one totally took my breath away, much better, when I was watching it in my research for the nominations. It's inspiring symphonic art songs with accompanying video creations that were made remotely with other live virtual artists and various backdrops. They're the most wonderfully beautiful cinematic things to watch at the same time, but they also have been paired with various social issues at the same time, including black rights, solidarity, mercy between races and colours. And Nelson is also now preparing a full-scale album on the topic of preservation of nature, as well as songs related to African independence and the tragic legacy of slave trade from the past and present times. I really recommend checking them out. They're a wonderful series that take different social topics at each of their videos. They're fantastic. And the other highly commended is Zachary James. The original project was meant to be a Carnegie Hall solo recital with works of female composers, which are predominantly world premieres. But when that sadly couldn't happen, the project was then inspired by Beyonce with her visual album Black is King. And there are a series of visual album recordings taking these works and performing them in a very new format for us as classical artists. So huge congratulations to Nelson Ebo and Zachary James. They are wonderful and I really recommend checking out. But the winner for Digital Project for a Musician goes to Maria Marchant. So this is for the 7 Notes in 7 Days at 7 PM project, which has now been running for 35 weeks. And although originally starting in lockdown, it's been a series where it's been premiering a solo piece for piano every single Monday, every single week. The first performances have been by composers all around the world, including Sweden, France, Kosovo, Prague, and even more. One of the most wonderful bits of feedback was from a composer who nominated this project, who was saying that it really inspired to continue writing this year after having the inevitable cancellation of premieres. This project gave them something that really motivated them going forward and was incredibly touching. So huge congratulations to Maria for what is an incredible project that is still going, and I'm totally blown away by. So well done to Maria. Okay, so we now move on to Digital Project for Opera. And it is great to see all of you chatting away in the chat. Thank you so much for being here and drinking away as well. So, Digital Project Opera. Highly commended go to Opera Sunderland for The Soldier's Return. This fantastic opera was filmed to mark Remembrance Sunday and drew together everything that made live performances so special on film. It's unbelievably touching and also such a wonderful, poignant thing to mark during this time as well. I hugely, again, with everything on this list, recommend going and watching those. They're absolutely incredible. And the other highly commended is 8 Songs from Isolation with Academy of St Martin in the Fields. What really made me smile about this project is similar to what Alistair was saying and being able to create things on your phones. The whole project was shot entirely on iPhone with 8 leading composers, including Thomas Arders, Freya Waller-Cohen, Hugh Watkins, Julian Anderson, and was studying poetry, letters, and speech that basically brought in the context of physical isolation for various people. Huge congratulations to both of those. They're both fantastic. And again, with everything, as I just mentioned, really recommend watching. But the winner for Digital Project for an Opera goes to Scottish Opera and the Narcissistic Fish. This is something that really excites me as a concept, and taking into the way you look at musicals when they're reimagined for film and they're a very much different entity to a stage musical. This was taking an opera and reimagining it as an operatic film, and is, as well as being beautifully filmed, is really reimagining what that could be and how a camera could look to capture an opera. As a takeaway, as well as an additional thing on this that's outside of digital, it was also entirely in Scots language, and it was great to see how that could be used as the libretto for the opera. Again, this is something that's freely available and you can watch back. I highly recommend it, and I think that this could be a really fascinating new platform, not just for operas to create content that based on existing operas, but to specifically create operas that are for a film format. So really excited by that. So well done, Scottish Opera. Next up goes to a digital project for an orchestra. So highly commended are the Impossible Orchestra, which brought together musicians from over 14 countries to create beautiful piece of music and to aid women and children suffering from domestic violence in Mexico. Predominantly read by Alondra de la Parra. Musicians included Maxim Vengroff, Albert Mayer, and Sarah Willis. It's an amazing cause and fantastically put together. And the other highly commended is the London Philharmonic Orchestra's LPO Online, which is a digital hub offering everything from podcasts to composer programs to performances to their Future Force First Education Initiative to their Junior Artists Education Initiative, which is quite hard to say after more Prosecco. The hub was also used to show all of this amazing work give auditors in present access and behind the scenes footage. So huge well done to LPO. Their content online is absolutely amazing, so well done to them. But the award goes to the Los Angeles Philharmonic for Soundstage. Absolutely amazing, as I mentioned earlier, beautiful project. It's so wonderfully put together online. The film and cinematography is stunning, as well as what is probably one of the most immersive digital platforms that's been made during this time. So a huge well done to the Los Angeles Philharmonic, or LA Phil as they are better known. Well done to them. So moving on again to a digital project for a youth organisation. And again, this is one that's sort of tugs on my heartstrings from working in the education sector before. There's so many wonderful beneficial projects that could really be highlighted and wish I had time to do so. But highly commended goes to Ex Cathedra for Singing Playground, which brought together 47 interactive teaching films, and 21 weeks of teaching plans for teachers to help bring together singing in a playground where you're able to do it distance from other children in a way that is COVID compliant, which is such a unique thing to do during this time. So very well done to them. And similarly for South East Derbyshire Music Centre, who managed to do some incredible projects during lockdown, including the many hours of recording and editing by members of over 12 ensemble directors who kept youth music alive in Derbyshire. Huge well done to them, and especially for their digital Christmas concert as well, which was just premiered on the 12th of December. So well done to them. But the winner for digital project for a youth organisation goes to the National Children's Orchestra of Great Britain. Huge well done to them. They've moved mountains to make sure their residential courses are able to work online. They've created an entire platform where young people are able not only to consume digital content, but to upload and participate and have a community. In particular, the way they've managed to facilitate new members of the orchestra who've never met anyone in their ranks to be able to talk and communicate with the rest of the orchestra has been incredible. Such a wonderful organisation that you really should be checking out. They're absolutely fantastic. So huge well done to them. So we are now out of the digital projects and onto some of the other year arcing awards, which is really fantastic. Before we launch into them, I'm just going to touch base on the Help Musicians UK Award. And I'm not going to pester you to donate any more money to them. But what I am going to do is pester you to share this message though. It's such a wonderful, wonderful project helping musicians through the pandemic. So if you can share the campaign, you can tell your friends and family about it, you can ask others for donations. Please do get involved with sharing the Just Giving page for MU4MU, which is in the links or is running along in the link somewhere down here, and help pass on this message and share it far and wide to more people so we can hopefully continue to support musicians throughout the pandemic. I'd really appreciate if you can share that. It'd be fantastic. So thank you very, very much. Wonderful. So the first year, these are awards of the year, I guess is probably a better way of putting it. The first is the Choir of the Year Award. So highly commended go to Ifagilioni, which is incredible. They've seen them engage hundreds of people every week with their lockdown Sing with the Score initiative, and the ability to provide people with access to music as well as the physical score of the music, as well as the music they can sing along to, has been incredible. The films have been wonderful, and also some of the feedback from nominations has been so incredibly touching. So huge well done to them. And the other highly commended is the Apex Singers, who have shown their resilience over the last few months and created content during all of this time in quite an innovative way, as well as releasing their debut album during lockdown, which is a huge achievement, and I can't begin to imagine what that would be. They've been able to create 9 various different pieces in an entire lockdown isolation series, as well as releasing new music, which has been Scala's Record of the Week as well. So huge well done to Ifagioni and the Apex Singers. But the winner for Choir of the Year goes to the Gesualdo 6. Huge well done to them. There were so many nominations in this category, as choirs have been so wonderfully active, but there is honestly so much that I could talk about that they've done. Not only the quality of digital content they've created, their London Sound Gallery project, the way they've adapted to new platforms, again, what I can say is just go and check them out. The spectacular level of content they've created, and not only the digital side, but the artistic side has been wonderful. And I honestly can't wait to see what they get up to in 2021 as they push on from this. So huge well done for the Gesualdo 6. Right, so then moving on to Creator of the Year. So this is more of a social media award for those people who have social media presence, who've been creating specific social media content during this time over the last year on various different platforms. So highly commended are Dave Bruce, composer, the most wonderful YouTube series in particular, taking various different thoughts around music theory on compositions and making them really applicable to YouTube. They're absolutely spectacular. He's someone you must subscribe to. And the other highly commended is the Melodica Men, who are, again, one of the most entertaining things out there in the classical music world. I was watching their Tchaikovsky 4 piece for 2 melodicas, or arrangements, and they are honestly spectacular and make me smile every single time I see one of the videos. So huge well done to both of those for highly commended for Creator of the Year. But the Creator of the Year award goes to violinist Esther Abrami. If you haven't come across her already, you really should. She is absolutely spectacular as a content creator and as a musician and violinist. Not only in the past was her social media incredible with millions of hits on Facebook, with content being picked up by 9gag amongst other things, but this year she's really embraced TikTok with over 221 followers, 4 million likes, and some of her videos receiving over several million views. Excuse me. She is utterly spectacular as a content creator and a real shining light as to what musicians could be fully embracing social media. So huge well done to Esther. Right, I'm going to take a quick swig of my bubbles. Who knew that talking for 2 hours would be so thirsty? But this brings it on to Ensemble of the Year. So these are for the ensembles who've really been, as with everything else, a shining light throughout 2020. Highly commended are the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment, not just for their digital concert player OE player, but the way they've continued to create social media content throughout the year. Their introducing instrument series is absolutely incredible, as well as being able to continue performing in socially distanced formats is fantastic. And the other is the South Bank Sinfonia for continuing to not only create content during this time, but provide training opportunities for young musicians outside of music college who are just at the start of their career. So huge well done to Orchestra Age of Enlightenment and South Bank Sinfonia. But the Ensemble of the Year award goes to the London Mozart Players. As you may have heard John talk about as how special the first series of concerts the London Mozart Players did during lockdown were. They touched so many people. I think in the UK they were one of the very first people to be able to perform as an ensemble. And their first 3 videos that were live streamed on Classic FM on Facebook were incredibly touching, not just for the fact we got to see musicians playing together, but the harrowing images of them wearing face masks, and that really hit home at the time what this meant for us, as well as showcasing these settings that were completely empty, like Westfield Shopping Centre. They've been creating content all of this time and really been a shining light as to what ensembles can be online. So huge well done to the London Mozart players. This then brings us on to Musician of the Year. This one was, to be honest, one of the hardest to choose between, with so many nominations and so fine lines between, and I wish I could have 50 things I could share with you. But the highly commended go to Fenella Humphreys, in particularly for her live stream performance series, the way she's continued to perform during with that and really showcase what you can do from home, but the campaigning around live streaming rights with Spotify, being a part of MU for MU's campaign to raise money for Help Musicians UK and various education projects. They've been absolutely incredible. Really, really fantastic. So huge well done to Fenella. And the other is for Matthew Sharp. A huge well done. I honestly can't begin to start with saying how much you've done this year. And if you haven't come across Matt before, he is a man that does everything from singing to cello playing to acting. And there's so many projects, whether online, facilitating others, educational, teaching, that have been a part of that. So huge well done to Matthew. I honestly don't have time in this session to say all the things that you've done. But the winner for Musician of the Year goes to Jamie Hall. So I am so happy to have discovered your series through these nominations. The thing that really touched me actually wasn't the content necessarily itself, but the impact it had on others. And to quote one of the nominations that I received was that Jamie kept me going throughout lockdown with his morning bathrobe recitals. I'm a frontline clinician in the NHS, and it was just what I needed first thing in the morning. I think it's incredible to see the impact it's had, and also the tongue-in-cheek way you managed to raise hopes and spirits throughout lockdown. Also, it's a great way of showing leader, and also not only the original bathrobe recital season, but now the bathrobe recitals advent calendar have been incredible as well. So huge well done to Jamie. It has been wonderful seeing all of your content and also the impact and the way it's touched people during this time. We are almost caught up to being back on schedule. Great. So the next is on to Opera Company of the Year, or Opera Organisation, or Opera Thing. It's quite a hard way to put an overarching label on. But the highly commended go to the English National Opera, mainly for their Drive-Through Opera series, such a unique way of tackling the issues that we face during this time. You may think there's not much digital in that, but the way they were transferring live giant screens during this time with that to the people who were performing, the people who were in the audience, were absolutely incredible and genuinely really impressive. The other highly commended goes to the Royal Opera House, who for me are basically the golden, wonderful, perfect image that you showcase to everyone else as to what arts organisations should do online and with social media. They really are the gold standard. And this year in particular, the way they're embracing TikTok and leading the way on that has been incredible. But the winner for Opera of the Year goes to we are going to fix that. I knew there'd be something that went slightly right during this time. So it's nice that we've actually got a 2020 feel of things not necessarily working. And as if by magic, touch wood. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves during this time. Maybe check Twitter, see what's going on in the world. And after a small delay, Opera Company of the Year goes to the Northern Opera Group. Absolutely incredible. So the Northern Opera Group have not stood still in 2020. Amongst other things, their podcast Operacast has continued throughout the pandemic, giving the event listeners a chance to participate in opera quizzes. They've also delivered their annual Leeds Opera Festival, both online and in person in August. They really have not stood still and have been absolutely incredible, as well as providing opportunities for artists to be paid to sing during this period as well, which is really important for those freelance singers. So huge well done, and sorry for the slight tech issue in getting that award started. We were almost there with 50 minutes to go with no issues, so nearly there. Right, so the next award goes on to International Soloist of the Year. The highly commended go to Tasmin Little for her farewell season. I don't think she really would have predicted that 2020 would go like this for her, but it's been great to see there's been a chance to showcase her last year of performing online and really getting to grips with the live streaming of performances and connecting with more people throughout that. So huge well done to Tasmin. And the other highly commended goes to Nicola Benedetti for the work with the Benedetti Foundation, as well as being one of the busiest soloists online during this time as well. So huge well done to Nicola Benedetti. But the award goes to, and this is why I'm desperately hoping the next graphic works. Igor Levitt. So huge well done to Igor. I think we can all remember his Twitter concert recital season, which I think started at the very bang on first day of the pandemic when it really hit home for most of us. And his decision to warm up people's lives and to live stream on Twitter and connect to people in what was such a unique and informal way was absolutely incredible, and a real shining light at a time as to what we could do going forwards. So incredibly well done to Igor Levitt. Next we go on to, actually I'm going to go for bubbles before, as I keep talking way too much. But again, as Alistair's now got the sip of that, as a mini reminder, if you could help share the message about the Help Musicians UK campaign, please do share the link and various posts to help support musicians during this pandemic, which either ring along the bottom of the screen, or as you probably guessed from watching for so long, and I keep talking about it, is in a link in the description as well. So this leads on to Orchestra of the Year, which is, to be honest, incredibly hotly contested genre that I could have spent hours and hours and hours deliberating. The highly commended, though, go to the Royal Scottish National Orchestra, in particular for their efforts during the initial lockdown and for their RSNO at Home series. Truly incredible to see what they managed to do and the way they managed to empower their musicians during that time to create. They were putting out such wonderful content. So huge well done to them. And similarly, for highly commended are the London Philharmonic Orchestra, one of my personal favourites for social media going back for quite a while. Not just their LPO online series, but the way they've created educational content during this time. In particular, their, I think it's clap along or bang along for the percussion videos are really incredibly innovative, and so huge well done for them. But the winner for Orchestra of the Year goes to the Philharmonia Orchestra. They have been creating some of the cinematically most beautiful concerts I've seen throughout this whole period. I think what the impact of this going forward is be, in particular for the BBC Proms, who must now really have to pick up their game to really match what these other orchestras are now doing, is incredible. Not only just the online content that they've done in terms of the performances, but the interviews throughout this series, their general social media has been utterly incredible and a real shining light, in particular with visual imagery. So huge well done to the Philharmonia for Orchestra of the Year. Okay, so we're moving forwards now. This is not only my favourite category, potentially, but one of my favourite nominations for the winner in this one. This is for the Teacher of the Year award. So highly commended go to Rachel Cooper, who's not only been teaching her own students this time and private students in Guildhall Juniors and Music Masters, but also has been teaching people through the Benedetti Foundation, as well as been delivering free Suzuki live stream sessions for children all over the world. So huge well done to Rachel Cooper. And also to highly commended for Andrew McIntyre at Yarm School. Andrew has worked tirelessly to fuse virtual and individual performances with live recorded bubble ensemble performances to create some very special ensemble pieces this term. This has been particularly important for those who need to isolate during this time, and Andrew has been able to put together Walking the Air performed by 7 different bubbles at the school at the same time. So huge well done to Andrew. But the winner of the Music Teacher of the Year award goes to Shirley Roberts. This nomination is one of the most heartwarming things I read during this whole awards. Shirley Roberts is an 84-year-old piano teacher from Shrewsbury in Shropshire. And just 1 week before lockdown in March, she received from a friend the friend's father's old iPad, and was shown how to use the iPad at home for the possibilities of continuing to teach with FaceTime. Little did she know that sadly she only could receive 1 lesson as lockdown then kicked in. So without basically any preparation of how to use an iPad, she managed to start practicing and learn how to call family members during this time, and continued to teach throughout FaceTime or through my iPad. When there were various technical issues, she continued during the phone, and although ICT is not something that Shirley would ever have felt the need to embrace, she's now been able to do this and continue her teaching. I don't think Shirley has social media, so not being able to link her, but huge well done to Shirley. I'm honestly so touched by your story and that you're embracing technology, so thank you so much, and huge well done to you. Okay, then the other award, moving on, is the award for Youth Organisation of the Year. Highly commended go to the National Orchestra for All, which has been absolutely incredible again with what they've been able to output for people, and also for the National Children's Orchestra, again with how they've managed to put their summer course and various courses and connect to young people during this time and create their own online hub for them. But the winner of Youth Organisation of the Year goes to Lincolnshire Music Hub Service, or Lincolnshire Music Service rather. Huge well done to them. They've been incredible. I've really enjoyed consuming their content after seeing these nominations. They've gone well above and beyond the call of duty in the pandemic, where all tuition moved online, including getting over 800 young people to be online for lessons in the matter of 1 week. They've also been creating various lockdown videos, including one of Skyrim, which is one of my personal favourites, and various new staff collaborations with Manchester Video Gaming Orchestra in Chineke, as well as creating performances for the NHS. It's such a huge testament to going well above and beyond the call of duty for what is such a difficult time. And I can't begin to imagine the tech issues for getting 800 lessons online, especially when I've been shouting and swearing at just doing 1 live stream. So huge well done to Lincolnshire Music Service. It's such a wonderful achievement. So we have 1 award to go, but what I'd love to do before getting into the final award is to touch base around our Help Musicians UK campaign, in particular by Musicians for Musicians, which is a campaign created by Amelia Conway-Jones, who joins us now. Amelia, thank you so much for being here and being patient and waiting in the green room as well.
That's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me come on to chat to you. And also, huge thank you for suggesting that people might donate to the campaign today. I really appreciate your help. Thank you.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And it is such a wonderful campaign. What gave you the impetus to start it at the very beginning?
Well, if this had happened at any other time in my career, it would have just been such a different thing for me, because basically I was a freelancer for 13 years, and then in August 2019 I joined the Orchestra of the Opera House. So when we were kind of obviously heading into the shutdown, I was thinking this is going to be potentially such a kind of divisive thing, where musicians who find themselves employed in those orchestras might well be in a totally different position from our colleagues who we play with every day, who are not employed in those circumstances. And, you know, I was chatting to the freelancers and they were saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. We can't go into a shutdown, you know, all my work will stop. And so I was thinking, God, I just feel so lucky, just so fortunate to have found myself in this position. And I thought the music world is just such an amazing place for collaboration and community. You know, everyone knows everyone. It's all this ecology and we all rely on each other in different ways. And so what I really wanted to do was to kind of recreate that and to give some kind of platform where we could all come together to support each other at this most difficult of times and kind of share the wealth, if you like. I mean, not that musicians are necessarily always the most wealthy, but I feel like they're often the most generous, and I wanted to kind of give a platform for that.
Absolutely fantastic. So the platform itself, it's not just been a fundraising campaign, it's also been a series of concerts, is that right?
Yeah, so it started off as just a Just Giving page, and I kind of went out to the people who were close to me, I suppose, and especially my colleagues. I want to give a big shout out to my colleagues because they've been absolutely amazing at the Opera House. They were some of the first people who really boosted the campaign. And then again on Giving Tuesday, we decided to do a giving day in solidarity with our freelance colleagues, and on that day alone, we raised about £5,000, which is amazing. So yeah, it started off as that, and then once we were sort of a few weeks in, I thought, I think this is actually going to go on quite a long time. And what better than a sort of creative project? We've got to start making music, basically. So I decided to curate an album and to get in contact with musicians from across the spectrum, because my wife actually plays bass guitar and I play in bands and stuff sometimes. And I thought, it's not just the classical music world, it's everyone. So on the album, I wanted to reflect that. So we've got electronic music, we've got folk music, world music, obviously a couple of classical pieces. So yeah, I kind of wanted to also, I guess, give people another reason to give. So we made the album in lockdown, which was a huge learning curve for me because I've never made an album before. I had no idea what I was doing. At some point, quite a long way into the process, somebody said, of course, you're going to need to get this mastered. I had to kind of find out what mastering was and then find someone to do it. And all the people who were part of that donated. So the guy who mastered it, the guys who mixed it, is absolutely amazing. And so the sales were split between the musicians who played on the album and obviously help musicians who I'm raising money for. So we had that, and then we've done concerts, we've done Dancing Folk, which was a huge international project that was like one of the video projects. So that was already happening, and I kind of got in on the act of that one. One of these video projects with hundreds of musicians, which reached 2,500 people, I think. So that was really fun. Yeah, I've just been so lucky. Pretty much everyone that I've gone to say, would you like to get involved? And I'm thinking of doing this, has gone, yeah, of course, I'd love to get involved. And I kind of really just embraced the idea of the campaign.
It's fantastic. And for yourself, how has lockdown been and affected you as a musician? Because obviously you're not just fundraising at a time when things are completely golden and sunny for you. This is obviously a slightly more difficult time than normal.
It is, yeah. I guess the thing is that for me, it's been very strange because my usual creative outlet, in the same way as everyone else has experienced, hasn't been there. And actually the fundraising has kind of, for me, filled that void, and that void of also connecting with people. So I've also made music with people who I probably would never have made music with, which has been really exciting, really fun. And just, yeah, that's been the sort of creative thing for me, and a huge learning curve again. So many things to learn, but it's been really, really nice to have that kind of something positive as well to just focus on, because there is a lot of negative things that you could dwell on. And it's been, yeah, just really lovely to be working with friends and make new friends. I mean, some people on the album, I literally just tweeted them and said, I'm doing this thing, is there any chance? And they were like, yeah, I'm on board. And I've never met them. It's amazing.
Very much. I think this period has shown just how generous people can be, but also the way you can reach out on social media and just ask random questions for projects is incredible. We've got one more award to go, and what I want to do at the end of this is have another push for people to donate. I kind of think that people will be bored of my voice after 1 hour 59. Would you be okay to hang around to the end to do a final push for Help Musicians UK?
Of course I will, yeah. Thank you.
Brilliant. So I'm going to dash into the final award and I'll come back to you in a second. Sure. Okay, so the final award is for the Unsung Hero of the Year. which again is incredibly touching to sort of recognise those people who may not necessarily receive recognition or be behind the scenes of various things. So highly commended go to Andy Faulkner of St. Peter's School in York. Although he does so many incredible things to normally support music, it's incredible to see him steer the school through these waters. But not only just at a time where it's a pandemic, but where York's music history and cultural scene is currently in turmoil after the Minster School sadly closed. So St. Peter's is now taking on the mantle of providing that element of music for York and York's culture, and it's been incredible to see how he has been able to maintain not only a schedule and transforming a whole school to teaching during lockdown, but provide music and also take on this new set of skills and responsibilities to be able to provide music in that way and music education for the Minster. So huge well done to Andy Faulkner. That is incredible. And the other highly commended goes to Jan Murray, who is trustee and general manager of Churchill Music. Jan is one of these wonderful people who is an unpaid volunteer and general manager. And despite going through a difficult period herself with lockdown and the pandemic, she's turned her thoughts to be able to keep people connected through music. Although digital technology has been the same for most of the people's world, it doesn't always apply to everyone. So instead of going all singing or dancing with the tech, which can occasionally go wrong, as we've seen during this wonderful live stream, Jan has been able to appeal to the main demographic of our audience by providing an email list where it's been showing highlights of what's been going on, projects that people should listen and pay attention to, how to watch things, including even negotiating a partnership where there will be a resource for tech support to how to watch on the TV as well. So huge congratulations to Jan Murray. But the winner of the Unsung Hero Award goes to I might have hoodwinked you into this one. So it goes to Amelia Conway Jones. A huge well done. Yeah. The one bit we didn't mention in our previous chat was how much you've raised for Help Musicians UK to help other musicians. So what is the current running total for your campaign?
I think today that we've clicked over about £46,000.
That is absolutely exceptional. When I sort of decided with this to try and raise money for a cause, I thought it'd be great if we could raise like 50 quid or something. And then obviously sort of in comparison, it's just insane just the amount of money you've been able to raise. And it is an amount of money I think makes such a huge difference. And especially at a time when it's something that most people try and understandably make sure that they're able to survive during these periods, but you've been able to go above and beyond. Have you received any feedback from musicians during this time as to what's been the report they've received from the support?
Yeah, I've had little bits. I was talking about this actually today. I think that for me, most of the feedback that I've had about the campaign has actually been amazingly from people who've kind of been part of it or donated, that they've actually shown their gratitude that they've been able to donate, which is a really incredible thing. I think they've just been so kind and kind of said, wow, thanks so much for giving me a way to donate to this cause and stuff. So I have spoken to a few people, especially actually the amazing thing about Help Musicians is that, of course, they were there for us before this all happened, and they will continue to be there for us to nourish us and to help us find a way out of this as well with their Do It Differently funds and all those kinds of things that have a much more kind of long-term impact. So yeah, I have spoken to a few people who maybe had injuries and were helped by Help Musicians before the pandemic as well. And they just said the really amazing thing, apart from the financial help, was just this idea that they said, we think what you're doing is really important and we think that you should continue to be supported to do it. You know, music isn't something that's a frivolous, nice to have when things are going well. You are a musician and you are contributing, and it's really important that you continue to do that. And I think that's at the heart, I would say, of what Help Musicians are doing, which is so amazing that they just say to musicians, you are important, you are an amazing resource for society, if you like.
Absolutely, it's genuinely incredible. I'm almost speechless at the achievement you've managed to do during this time. What are your plans for the campaign going forward?
Yeah, I've got an idea that I have sort of there's a little foray into it and it hasn't come off yet, but I've got an idea of doing a big music quiz and getting various people from various kind of genres or something to do a huge quiz, because I think that could be really fun. And I've started a collaboration with Ollie Mansfield, who's been running these weekly live concert series, and I feel really bad because I started collaborating with him just as the time another couple of things kind of came in and I got a bit sidelined. So I'm definitely going to be spending more time with Ollie, exploring what we can do on the live front. Yeah, I don't know. I have to admit I've been having a little bit of a rest over Christmas, and
I think very well deserved as well.
So these ideas generally come about when I'm sort of attempting to do something else, like practice the violin or something strange like that. So I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm sure there's something there.
Very much so. It is absolutely awesome, and I honestly couldn't think of a better person to receive the Unsung Hero Award. So a huge well done for everything you've done. I hope you've got some nice plans for this night to bring in the new year, and all the best of the campaign. Do you have any final call to action? Seems I probably shouldn't do the last please donate thing. I'll pass it on to you.
Well, I just think that we, as musicians and as a community, it's such a strong thing. And I feel like, for me, actually, when I've thought about it and really dug down into it, the thing that I probably miss even more than the music is being with everyone and having those connections with people on stage and the connections with people who are not on the stage, with the audience and all those things. And so we must find a way through this and support each other through this. And I think that doing it in this way also, it allows us to show that we're doing that all together. And I think that that's a really nice thing, actually, to say, I actively raise my voice to support you. And that's what I'm trying to do basically with the campaign. And if you agree, and if you feel that that resonates with you, and you honestly, if you've got 50p to spare and you feel like you want to give it, that's amazing. It doesn't have to be hundreds of pounds. But if it is hundreds of pounds, then that's also very kind. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, such a huge well done and congratulations. And I hope you have a fantastic New Year tonight as well.
Thanks so much. And a great award ceremony. Thank you, David.
Absolute pleasure. Wonderful. Well, that caps off the whole night. Thank you so much for joining us if you have, and I hope you have a really happy new year. It's been great to look back on everything that's been happening, and there's been so much media to consume, and I'm sure there's plenty of amazing things that I've also missed during this, as there's only so many times of the year. But thank you to everyone who nominated, thank you to everyone who watched and commented. Please do let me know of your personal highlights during the year, and please, if you can, pass on 50p to Help Musicians UK. I'm going to go have a lie down in the dark room now this is all done, and I hope you all have a happy new year. Thanks.